Shake, Rattle, and Troll, a show for the serious fishermen, as well as the novice looking for tips from the pros. Shake, Rattle, and Troll is brought to you by Bill Luke Dodge Chrysler Jeep. Now, here's your host, saltwater fisherman and tournament pro, Don McDowell.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm Don McDowell. Welcome to the Father's Day edition of Shake, Rattle, and Troll today, and I want to wish everybody out there that has kids running around, whether you're married or not, happy Father's Day. And we have a pretty interesting show today. We've got JK in the house from Safeguard Business Systems, Arizona Deer Association, and where else?
That's about the locale you can find me at most of the time.
You have your own room up at the Madazell Casino?
I should at this point.
The Colazar room?
Yeah.
Nice.
It was a good day yesterday up there. Well, you should have the same room. We could just share it. You were up there all day Friday.
The game commissioners meeting. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Here's what we're going to do today. There's been an awful lot of controversy and hot spots on the new proposed wolf range, let's say. I'm going to leave it at that. We've got an awful lot of activity up north relative to the revised 10J wolf range, and we've got a very special guest today. Doyle Shamley from Apache County is online with us from downtown Springerville, I presume, where the weather is always nice. Doyle, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, gentlemen?
Yeah, we're facing 108 degrees today. We were talking before we went on air how nice it would be to be in Springerville about 10 o'clock this morning.
Yes, it is. We had a nice light rain yesterday to keep the dust down, and we got 3 different town festivals going on up there. You got your range of more junk food than you'd ever want to eat, which is okay, and from bluegrass and jazz to rock music all going on all over the mountain. It'll definitely be, I think, a better atmosphere than down in the valley.
Well, before we get going, Doyle, I want to thank you for your service to the country and all the sacrifices and the things that you had to go through. So thank you very much.
No problem.
Moving along, you're heavily involved in Apache County and have your own research company. Give us a little bit of a rundown of exactly what you do. You're kind of a hard guy to tie down as far as your responsibilities, just because of all the activity within your battle space.
Well, essentially, you could say it specializes in delegation of authority and jurisdiction, which really is the crux of all intergovernmental relations, quite honestly, come down to those 2 things. And that is also the 2 areas that are most under attack by encroachment from our out-of-control federal government constantly. So those 2 areas have become, if somebody is a patriotic American and believes in our constitutional republic and knows we're not a mobocracy or a socialist state, that is the 2 areas that they can get the most bang for the buck defending. Our research firm goes back to 1992. We've been testified and written special testimony, both in Congress, on hordes of occasions, from security matters to natural resource matters to budgetary matters, and we're the keynote addresses and instructors to the National Constitutional Affairs Association Convention, 28 counties in 1 month in the state of California, let alone our week-long intelligence conferences around the nation. And I spend, unfortunately, a lot of time at our great capital of Phoenix.
Well, we all have a lot of concerns, and I'm becoming more familiar with what Apache County has done as far, in my opinion, has taken the lead relative to asserting their authority under their law, under Arizona law. And I want to start with, just a general overview from your perspective. I know you guys have been heavily involved in the wolf recovery program and the 10J experimental area. How's that been working out for you guys thus far, as a whole?
Oh, well, whether you do it as a whole or a microcosm, it's a joke. First off, it's this budgetary scam, a fraud placed upon the taxpayers of this country to the tune of millions of dollars. It is a direct attack upon the cultural and historic uses of our republic and our great state. It is a direct attack upon people's livelihoods and families. It is a scientific assault because there is no science or almost no science used whatsoever in the program. And quite honestly, and it's going to be easily shown here shortly, I think you will see it, in fact, in a couple weeks, it's easy to prove that there is not even a genetically pure line of what they're introducing to the tune of $765,000 per head.
Now, you're talking about the fact that you're questioning the genetic tracings of these, we'll call them in theory, Mexican gray wolves, correct, Doyle?
Yes, because they are technically actually even referred to by carnivore geneticists, including the leading geneticists around the world, or starting with the original release and trapping team, who I speak to weekly. They're spread around the country from 1978 through 95, who walked away from the program in writing because of the fraud. They are referred to even technically as wolf-dog hybrids.
There's the key.
Bingo.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so it's at no time in the future are we going to be able to achieve genetic recovery.
No, and there's no intention to, and that's why a few of those fancy statements are stuck in the newly released, I sent you, the 10J out of the Federal Register.
Right.
That is why, two reasons. First off, you will recall 2 weeks ago when I was down there at the governor's office with her staff and the director of Ag and director of Game and Fish, that the front page of the Arizona Repugnant ran an article concerning the predatory release and the poor Mexican gray owl in the wolf in the Southwest. You'll recall in that article on the front page of our paper of widest circulation, they stated 256 are available. Yet in the 10J and in tracking reports, they'll say we've only got 76 recovered species. The reason they will never have over 100 is because the new 10J modifications that they want to push through, not as an act of Congress assembled, but as a Ponzi scheme administrative ruling, state that there can be no takings, trappings, or translocations or hazing to protect people's health, safety, and welfare unless the population reaches 100.
Okay, having said that, what exactly has Apache County done on your new predator ordinance?
We have simply enforced our rights and abilities under the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which delegates specifically to the states and its political subdivisions the only entities in our republic who have the right to legislate and protect health, safety, and welfare of our citizens.
Now, that obviously, Doyle, has been presented to the governor. How was that received in the governor's office?
They said, as usual, you guys are in the front. That's how it was received. And just like our challenges to delegation of authority and jurisdiction, which we proved and won to Washington and back on federally managed lands, because that's the only lands we have in this state, except for Fort Huachuca and 1,200 acres of Tano. Everything else is just federally managed and not owned, in other words. And as well as the Director of Agriculture and Director of Game and Fish and our State Forester and the Legislative Research staff in the Senate and House. In fact, they're getting so used to us, they were waiting on the sidewalk for us. You know, there's a lot of pillow talk, if you will, down there at the Capitol. So people we didn't even contact knew we were on our way and where we were headed for different meetings. And slowly, as you're walking down sidewalks from one building to the next, you keep picking up strays that want to go see the new action. First thing out of their mouth, out of certain Senate and Legislative Research staffers, both parties included, were, thank God you're doing it, and why does it always got to be you guys leading the way?
Well, that question has occurred to me. I've read the bulk of the information that has come out of Apache County, and that question has occurred is why you guys have taken the lead. I'm not hearing anything out of Coconino County.
Because they're cowards.
Well, we're going to get to that. Gila County is late to engage. I don't know, there's been some lip service paid, but I haven't seen anything in writing supporting your initiatives and or ordinances. and your direct action in managing the forest up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's typical. Gila County, whether we were down there at the events they organized all over, and sometimes not even always within the, let's say, county boundaries proper, but whether it's supposed key Republican Party members and chair, or county staff, or so-called Tea Party groups, it doesn't matter. It comes down to something I've talked about a long time, and it's convenience. And people don't want to work for their freedom and their constitutional republic. They're dead. And it's easy to go to a meeting and, like a robot, wave a flag for 2 hours, and then you go back home, the bulk of people, unfortunately, not just in Gila, I'm talking about our country in this matter, and go to sleep. And then go back to the next meeting next Tuesday and wave and cheer, and then go home and go to sleep for 7 more days. That is the problem. It's apathy.
Well, you're right. You know, America's dumbed down to the point that, we're playing to a third grade mentality across the board. And the things that we're talking about today, there's only two sides to it. Those that are for it, those that are against it. Joe the plumber in between doesn't have a clue what the hell's going on.
No, that's just another, what would be called a neutralizer, technically, because they're using the Joe the plumbers of the world and the bulk of the Tea Parties, actually, as the typical communist Sino-English dictionary definition of neutralizer.
Bingo. Doyle, hold that thought. We've got to flip into our break. Thanks to some of our sponsors. I'm Don McDowell with Doyle Shamley in downtown Springerville. And
John Colazar.
We'll be right back.
The only one shines, clouds rain.
All right, we're back celebrating Father's Day. Special guest Doyle Shamley, downtown Springerville, Apache County, northeastern Arizona. Doyle, before we get into your actual predator ordinance, give us an overview of your understanding of the revised wolf introduction range going all the way from eastern New Mexico clear to the Colorado River, if you would.
Yeah, well, where a big part of that started was a flanking maneuver the agencies tried to pull, because they are despotic. On December 17th and 18th, a southwestern gray wolf was invented on paper, and a habitat area plan on one day and a critical and threatened and endangered species plan the next day were released. On January 4th, our researchers got hold of this plan via a clerk. I won't say where. Now, upon confronting the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service regional staff, which covers multiple states, they're housed in Albuquerque and Washington, D.C., both, of course. We were told, well, it was mailed to everybody, it must have got lost. So the first thing we had to do was check with counties throughout western Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and we couldn't find anybody that got it. The mail lost every document in every county.
Interesting.
So, yeah, of course. So we, of course, first thing is relied upon the ability to request what's called a comment period extension, and got that, just bam. But at that point, you start going through it, and basically there was a new species of wolf just because something got translocated or transplanted, is what most people would understand, or released. For instance, you taxpayers pay for releases and research in Old Mexico. So what you do is you release wolves in the crappiest part of Old Mexico you can find, just over our border. Now, they're naturally going to come up here.
Of course they are.
Eat some water. So now they wander in and they're south of I-10. Now, at the same time, your Ponzi schemes around the country have wolves coming down from Wyoming, Idaho, Colorado, Utah, into the northern region, and Kansas. And I have the proof for every bit of that. Kansas, wolf, caught and verified. So what you do is everything north of I-40, south of I-10, north of I-40, suddenly, because it changed places on the map, is a new species. So they somehow have found the powers of God to create DNA and unique species by where they live. So we, through actions of our county, the Fish and Wildlife Service, their own statement to me, hassling me at my house on weekends even, was, well, due to all the crap we got from you guys, we're going to have to withdraw this whole entire plan from Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. And we'll send you a letter in writing. And they did. They withdrew the entire plan. But anybody who thinks that that is just the end of anything from a federal Gestapo is crazy.
Nope.
This 10J modification, they have all those different parameters, and simply what they'll do is expand the range and reintroduction area of the Mexican gray wolf, because it's already acknowledged under the special 10J rule of Congress as a unique, introduced, specially managed species.
And non-essential, correct, Doyle? That was the key.
Yes.
Now, in terms of what we're seeing, I know the reason and the logic behind what they did in Old Mexico. They had a sympathetic rancher who was a United States citizen who owns land in Mexico.
Right on the south of the border?
Right south of the border, with every intent that the wolves would cross over and that they would become, at that point, an endangered species animal based on God knows what their creation is, as you say it. However, I since that time, it turns out that every one of those released wolves has died. Is that correct?
Yes. But with an expansion and change in the ruling, what you get, and a change in the translocations, they're not just being released on his ranch. I know who you're talking about. But when you release them south of Big Bend, Texas, they're going to head right up there into the sheep, goat, and cattle and deer country on purpose. Now, that means that when you release that announcement as a federal agency in the Federal Register, and of course, the bulk of society doesn't even know what that is, let alone read it every day. And I can't really blame them, I guess, for not reading it every day, that part. But what they just got was the same week their allies in the Center for Biological Diversity, who get inside information illegally, file a lawsuit that anything that comes in from a foreign country or outside of the special introduction area is automatically threatened and endangered.
Right.
Now, there's a big difference between something that's a specially managed introduced species and automatic T&E.
Right.
So they were running cover fire for each other, because both those incidences, and I have the entire court case and sent it to Dawn, the case that was filed, were done the same week, and that wasn't by accident.
Now, there seems to be a total cooperation between the Center for Biological Diversity and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, correct?
Yes, and they're not the only ones. I shouldn't just pick on CBD. They all just
Doyle, I think it's fair to bring that up, because I don't think, again, the citizenry has any idea under the EAJA what the Center for Biological Diversity has cost us.
Yeah, EJA. The Equal Access to Justice Act. Basically,
the money hole.
Yeah, the long and short of it is, according to the General Accounting Office and the CBO, both in their study, the most recent study just published last year, was essentially, on average, someone using EJA is paying their attorneys $95 an hour. They use flunkies that they sponsor through college that almost have an indentured servitude period because they got a scholarship from that foundation, let's say. And at that point, you pay them $95 an hour to juggle paperwork and find procedural errors, which is easy because you're dealing with federal agencies. If you prove 3 procedural errors in a document and you can win on those in court, you get your cost paid.
And the cost is billed at?
Huh?
What is the cost billed to the government at?
$650 an hour.
That's what I thought.
Bingo.
So you get 700% interest, while everybody else in America is not only paying that but losing their retirement. So you can see what it's about. It has very little to do with critters. If it did, these same entities like Wild Earth Guardians, Defenders of Wildlife, Sky Islands Alliance,
Defenders,
etc., would not have stopped the productive use of our federally managed lands. And in my backyard, their litigation directly caused the destruction of 86% of the spotted owl they claimed they were protecting.
right?
Because it has nothing to do with protection of species, water, or anything. It's two things: money and control of people.
Well, if you had a name like Kieran Suckling, what would you do? Yeah.
Well, I know. But we won't even go there, because... Anyway.
Thank you, JK. Appreciate that.
Anyway.
Yeah, by the way, Doyle, he's our voice of moderation and conservancy.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, I'm biting my tongue all day today.
I'm telling you, this is a tough one.
But so your audience understands, okay, people too often focus on, let's say, the center. Well, that's just because they've got the biggest mechanism and the prettiest letterhead. But don't forget the agent provocateurs living right in your backyard. Did you know that because the Southwest has been called by the environmentalist movement, if you will, which is really, truly just an arm of the world communist movement, and the American Communist Party president stated so in the 70s himself. Well, Arizona, being in the heart of the Sky Islands of the world, is a home of flourishing multiple organizations. There are organizations all over Tucson and Phoenix. And then there's other organizations who concentrate here because the goal of the bulk of environmental regulations in that one of the two prongs, the one concerning control of people.
Okay, Doyle, hold that thought. We'll be back after a short break. More of Doyle.
Down to Key Biscayne and Chi-Town.
All righty, we're back visiting with Doyle Shanley from Apache County, downtown Springville. Doyle, you know, you guys have got your ordinance 2013-07, an ordinance setting forth emergency predator human incidents, protective measures. Let's get into that and give me your thoughts behind that and how this works and what kind of authority you're giving your sheriff's department. Hello, Doyle.
Tell us.
Okay. Anyway.
Yes,
there we go.
Okay, Doyle is back. Did you get any of that, or do we need to kick it off?
Yeah, I got the last piece. Just real quick, because that's where I was headed. That last thought was that people need to realize that these groups working in their backyards are constantly subverting, and many of them use false front identities, so they sound like outdoor and sportsmen's groups even.
Oh, they're absolutely not. They're lying through their teeth in their mission statement.
Yes, but they go into public hearings, and people I have actually seen would-be good people neutralized by these folks, because I saw in a Game and Fish statewide hearing in New Mexico on the wolf, supposed gun and pistol range organization that got to get up and speak. So they do that routinely, because they just make up names and entities so that they can get their foot in the door to overcrowd the public comment. But anyway, on to the ordinance. We had no choice, because something we need to cover today is the attacks that have been put upon people by these government-introduced predatory species, whether they be the four-legged furry ones or the two-legged managers of the program. Both are predatory animals upon our people. And we have the right, with a sheriff in the country being the only elected law enforcement, the highest law enforcement officer, and the county being those duly authorized under the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. We have that oath to do so. It isn't just, well, I can because if I want to use it. No, you have a duty to do that as a county elected official, and those that don't are in direct violation of their oath of office and should be removed. Now, we had no choice, because we have become a target of many federal actions, as you can imagine. But for years, we've been the home, a piece of our county, I should say, has been part of the home of this experimental reintroduction area because there again we're in the Southwest.
Right.
And the environmental groups want to turn the entire Southwest, per their own statement, back to pre-European influence.
Correct. You can't recreate what was 200 years ago, and that's the attempt now. Even though it's a physical impossibility, they want a wildlife plausibility based on this genetically inferior animal. Correct?
Yeah, and it's not the only one though.
No.
So, but yeah, and then today's topic it is. But yes, and so with the massive economic impact that are outdoors, the users of the outdoors. That's the best way to sum it up, because this impacts your recreationists, and if you want to get into all the technical mumbo-jumbo, non-consumptive and consumptive users both, your livestock growers and feeders, your recreationists, it impacts all those. Now, when you impact those, what happens in town when they want to come home every day from work, if they even have a job still? They're not going out to dinner. They're not buying that new car or that new box of ammo down at Western Drug. So then you have a lower tax base for infrastructure. And then you have more potholes and less facilities for youth, less facilities for fire protection infrastructure. And it's a proven fact. Our economists that are all PhDs have proven everything I've said across the Southwest and the nation. Now, that is why we had to stand up. A perfect example. A local rancher forced off his bona fide, which is a private property right, allotments for grazing, forced to move his cattle for the safety of their lives and his family's well-being, strictly to a small piece of private property and forced into feeding, not natural grazing. Spent $16,000 in hay because of one pair
of Mexican gray wolves.
Yes. Now, this is with constant notification and meetings of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service introduction team. All the way to the top. No all along. 16,000. Keep that in mind. The cumulative impact was $86,000 to him, and that is not the cumulative impact to the community. $86,000 in impact. He got $1,600 in hay. $1,600 in hay reimbursement for all those impacts from this program, and then he was sent a tax form to claim it as income by the Fish and Wildlife Service.
Nice. All right, so basically your county board of supervisors has put their foot down. What are you doing specifically?
Right now, some of it I can't tell you because it's going on last week and this week.
Well, you've got an ordinance in place. Let's just keep it at that.
Yeah, and right now our deputies are all being fully trained by wildlife professionals from agencies and private institutes both. We also have brought in, under county budget, for the sake of our outdoors and all people that come visit our county, their safety. And we are the #1 destination point for Maricopa County. So those city rats better start waking up that they're about to lose their playground and quit treating it like just a playground.
Cool.
We have hired APHIS Wildlife Services, which is a branch that is never given their due credit under the USDA. And those are your paid predator hunters. They're got like paid government hunters, they used to be called a long time ago.
They're called ACEs now?
APHIS, APHIS, Animal Plant Health Inspection Services, and they have a branch called Wildlife Services. That's your guys that run around with rifles and traps and take care of predators.
Nuisance animals, basically.
Yeah. And
neutralizers.
Animals, diseases, etc. So we have chipped in as a county to help pay the salary of 2 of those gentlemen up here stationed, in conjunction with Phoenix, the Phoenix Office of Wildlife Services, and at the same time, like I say, through private institute and but I will say cooperating agencies with us at different levels, having all the deputies duly trained so that they have the proper identification techniques, whether that be print, canine spread, habitat and behavior, etc., to take any wolf that is a threat to the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens or their private property, and their cattle and your livestock and your domestic animals and your working animals are your private property.
Wouldn't that de facto just simply say that if they encounter a wolf, then it needs to be removed?
No.
If it's on private property, or if
Well, now you gave a qualification, yes.
Yeah. My biggest concern that has been and is never talked about at all for the cattle growers is that when cattle are exposed to predator base around them, it disturbs the gestation period, it disturbs their weight. They are not the same animal that grazes freely, and consequently it's a financial disaster for those cattle ranchers. And that's something that's never been incorporated into any of the refunding that's been designed for these programs, correct?
Yeah, and that's why we instituted it with our ordinance and our public hearings that we held, which are hours and hours and hours of them, and all our scientific documentation. We intentionally brought all that in every facet since January into the argument and all the way to the governor's office and everybody else we spoke to. Because the pressure put upon a calf and yearling operation, a mothering operation, any of those operations can cause a drop so that you only have 20% of what you had prior to the pressure placed upon it by predatory animals.
There is a big influence. There's no question on that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Influence.
So, in a nutshell, I'm personally very supportive of your initiative and your current ordinance. What is the opinion coming out of the governor's office and the wildlife service, or the feds, let's say?
Well, Fish and Wildlife, because they are they don't do their duty.
No.
They won't answer anything. In fact, Sherry Barrett, the regional director, enjoys telling non-truths constantly in our region, lying to our face, our county attorney and the supervisor's faces.
Well, 4 weeks ago, we just had up close and personal encounter with Sherry Barrett.
And she was refusing to say anything because it was quote-unquote confidential information.
Yes, and, we explained to her this is not a matter of national security. This is about you putting dogs in the trees.
Yeah. Well, and that's typical protocol, even though many of us had already distributed their internal memo dated May 7th. It wasn't confidential information. We had already distributed their own guidelines for the modifications to 10J on May 7th. Granted, it just came out Thursday, but that's the advance notice. It wasn't confidential. And, in fact, on the Tuesday prior to our Friday public hearing in February, she told the interdiction team members that she didn't know if she was going to come to our public hearing. She had already called an RSVP'd, and I have the voice messages with time and date stamp. She had lied to her own team members. But anyway, so I'm sure you can get out of all that the gist of what they think about it, but do we care? No.
Nope.
Because they work for us. And if
Absolutely.
Like it,
Doyle, hold that thought. We'll finish that up when we come back, folks. We've got 3 soldiers to honor that went down last week in battle. Roll call for June 16th. I'm Don McDowell with
John Colazar
and Doyle Shamley from downtown Springerville, Apache County. We'll be back.
Preach, farmers plow. I swear that's a fact. But the thought of
thanks for that,
somebody
James.
else
Appreciate the music. All right, Doyle, we're getting down to the nuts and bolts of this thing. So you've got private industry coming in, managing wolves. You're training all of your sheriff's deputies along the same lines. What is the criteria that they, in your ordinance, and I would encourage anybody to go to the Apache County website, read this, understand what they've done. They're taking responsibility for their county in a nutshell. So, Doyle, let's say I'm a wolf. I come on your property and you come out and try to shoo me away and I stand there. What's going to happen to me?
If you are any sort of a threat, imminent is, a spatial and time relationship. So that one's a hard one to call. But if you're any sort of a threat, when the deputy arrives to private property or the livelihood or the family members, the humans, let's say, aspect of that home or that yard, you can be destroyed. And in fact, Arizona revised statutes under the Director of Agriculture, he is mandated by law in Arizona to help counties, and specifically it even said the Board of Supervisors at counties in implementing programs for the destruction of predators.
Across the board.
Call that out too, because we're going to call it out from the top down.
What about the federal lands? When my biggest concern is grazing allotments on, say, the Apache sick graves. You've got cattle that are being worried by wolves, Mexican gray wolves specifically.
Yes, same thing. Actually, your cattle is your private property.
Doyle, let's take the last 6 months and try to break it down per monthly or weekly or whatever's more easily identifiable. How many livestock encounters are you seeing up there?
That depends on who you talk to, but you can get monthly reports if you want from Game and Fish Department of Arizona. You can also get reports from the Fish and Wildlife Service, but you can also get on the ground reports from the people that have to deal with it daily.
Well, that's
the one we want.
That's what I'm most interested in, because I'm not, I'd have to question the accuracy of the information coming out of
Fish and Wildlife. Totally,
yeah,
I don't buy it.
No.
Well, that's good, but that you don't buy it because you shouldn't. So, but if you go by the encounters of residences, sometimes it's in the dozens. It's in the dozens in a single day. And for instance, if you want an example, a by family namesake and good reputation, they deserve their good reputation because they're good folks as family. What many people don't realize is in a single night, 2 calf losses and 3 sheep losses. Clear outside at the extreme edge, not anywhere near the special introduction release area. That's a common endeavor. Now let's take another one. Let's take the fact of some of our proud Navajo state representatives, including ours. Mrs. Peslakai, our state representative, went with us. She is a good woman. She's a first-termer, she's a veteran, and she's a fine woman in her job, especially being she's new. She's got a lot to learn, a lot of pressure put on her by outside forces.
They'll beat it out of her eventually.
And I don't know with her. And I think she will leave before they beat it out of her, which that's happened before in our state too. But she accompanied us on the meetings, and her family happens to be sheep raisers. They're in the livestock, and that's very popular on the Navajo Nation because most families do sustenance livestock grazing.
Yeah, they do.
And if you lose 3 sheep in one night, that's 50% of your family's annual food. How are you going to do that? Her own operation has mysterious kills that they know aren't coyotes because of the canine spread and the indicativeness of the killing. Wolves will pressure a livestock and chase them until they're to the point of fatigue, the whole while biting and eating at their ass and flanks.
Correct.
And that's what she's getting with sheep, and finding them 400 and 500 yards away, which coyotes never did nor can do, from their kill site. Only something of the power of a wolf can do it, and they're completely outside of any introduction or range area. And until we called upon her as our rep, and she gladly accepted and went everywhere with us to every meeting, we would have never known that. So all of a sudden here we have another person in a respected position willing to say it in the governor's office and the director of ag office and in writing with us. And we'll be up here for some special events in 2 weeks as well. Willing to put out new kills that we would have never known about.
Doyle, I have a question, and this is, we're going to get down to the nuts and bolts of this. Eventually, there's going to be activities or actions taken by deputies that are going to be contrary to the wishes, commands, whatever, of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Center, Sierra Club, Defenders of Wildlife, or whoever you want to label it as. most of the legislation that they're putting in, or these mandates or interdictions that they're putting out there, are what I call paper tigers, because they have no enforcement capacity within our state whatsoever. They don't have manpower anywhere. What do you anticipate seeing in the future based on these conflicts arising?
Well, I believe that you will see an agency via a third-party private organization file litigation against the county, and we will make it a 10th Amendment case, because it is, and we're ready to take it to the top.
How many other counties are engaged formally at this point?
Right now, there's multiple counties, including some I can't state at this time, that I have meetings with in the western U.S., that's all I can say, over the next 4 days, that are mimicking our ordinance throughout the West. To the tune of 54 of them.
Let me ask you specifically, if you can comment, great. If you can't, certainly understand that. Where's Coconino County in all of this?
Never heard of them.
Thank you. Okay, I get it. Well, that concerns me, being born and raised in Arizona.
They have been specifically presented to by yours personally at the County State Association meetings, the ECO meetings, the small counties meetings. I did the presentations with my sheriff, my county manager, and my District 3 supervisor, and my District 1 chairman of the board supervisor from the Navajo Nation. And they have received it in writing, requests to support us, besides all those presentations over the last 3 months.
Who can you talk about quickly? We've got about a minute before we're going to do roll call, and then we'll pick this up at the top of the hour. We've already discussed Gila County to a certain extent. I understand La Paz County is signed on.
La Paz County is moving forward with this and another action that we're leading across the country, even through the National Association of Counties, who just recently held their conference in Flagstaff for the western U.S. Santa Cruz, and I can't speak to the other 91 counties because we need to make it a sweep.
Doyle, stand by with us. We'll pick this up at the top of the hour. This is roll call, folks, for June 16th. KIA coming out of Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. First on today's list is Army Staff Sergeant Jesse L. Thompson, Jr., died June 10th, serving during Operation Enduring Freedom, 31 years old, out of Pensacola, Florida. Staff Sergeant was assigned to the 39th Transportation Battalion, 16th Sustainment Brigade, 21st Theater Sustainment Command, out of Germany. Died June 10th in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, of unspecified causes. We don't have a photograph, nothing further but what we learned out of DOD. Self-inflicted wounds now are being called unspecified causes.
Army Lieutenant Colonel Todd J. Clark died June 8, 2013, serving during Operation Enduring Freedom. 40 years old, of Evans Mills, New York. Assigned to Headquarters and Headquarters Company 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division, Fort Drum, New York. Died June the 8th in Sharana, Afghanistan, of injuries caused by small arms fire received at Zargun Shah, Afghanistan.
Army Major Jamie Leonard died June 8, 2013, serving during Operation Enduring Freedom, 39 years old, out of Warwick, New York. The Major was assigned to Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division, out of Fort Drum, New York. Died June 8th in Afghanistan of injuries caused by small arms fire received at
Zargun Shah.
Yeah, thank you, John. Afghanistan. And that was the same incident that took Lieutenant Colonel Todd J. Clark. Again, freedom's not free. Think about this. Our hearts and prayers out to their family and their units. I'm Don McDowell. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back.
Come on, brother, I'm taking you home.
4-2nd Avenue, Angel Flight Bravo 02, checking in level 29.
Love is unconditional. We knew it from the start.
All right, we're back. Welcome to the second hour of Shake, Rattle, and Troll on Father's Day, and we extend a happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And to you, John.
And to you as well, Don.
Happy Mother's Day as well. All righty, Joey Notch is in the house from Lookout Mountain Outdoors. We've got Doyle Shamley from Apache County and downtown Springerville going over some of the measures in the new Apache County Ordinance 2013-07, an ordinance setting forth emergency predator-human incident protective measures, which is pretty interesting. And Doyle, I want to introduce Joe Notch here. He's a world hunter, extraordinary outdoorsman, and good guy to know if you need bullets or firearms of any type of nature. Welcome. Thanks for coming down, Joey.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank God for people like Doyle. I was listening to the show. That's awesome.
Well, you know, I'm looking at Apache County stepping out and doing the right thing and taking authority for who they are and what they do, and giving their sheriff's department almost unilateral zero tolerance on some of the issues that we're fighting. Doyle, one of the things that I know Apache County has done after the Wallow fire, you've taken responsibility for your forest. Can you outline some of the things that are going on up there relative to your industry after the fire? I know you've got 4 or 5 new mills starting back up. I think 3 of those were shut down for a period of time.
Yeah, the Wallow fire was the crux, you know, or that straw, if you will, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. The county passed several resolutions based on our, again, inherent 10th Amendment ability to protect health, safety, and welfare. One of those was concerning the federal management agencies that may or may not operate within our county, but, you know, and I say may not if they poke their head occasionally in here. And the other one concerning our road networks within our county. And because all roads have our inherent property right, and those do all have economic impact. The good thing is that we set post-fire records nationally for timber coming off this, whereas you still got, 12 years later from the
Rodeo Cheska. Yeah, they were never able to harvest anything off there because of the lawsuits that were filed by specifically the Sierra Club and the Center for Biological Diversity.
Yes, and well, they chose to not harvest, let me say that. So, you know, you can step up. They should have. Anyway, working in conjunction with various private and agency entities at all different types of levels, we've been able to make some astounding leaps and bounds. And, in fact, we have some more coming into our county right now because the county has become somewhere where a person can know that they're going to be safe and protected. We saved the entire industry just by defending rights on highways recently and making some people understand at different levels and different agencies the error of their ways.
Now, are you referencing HB 2551?
No, I'm not. But
not yet, but you're going to, I'm sure.
Yeah, and but this recent one was an 11,000-acre treatment area that lit over literally hundreds of jobs relied upon. Local mills in the next county, what are called value-added industries like the pellet plants, etc., and pulp operations relied upon your sawyer on the ground and your truck drivers and mechanics and the guys selling them fuel and parts. We had to save that one by being proactive, while in other areas of the nation and state, they get left by the wayside and just lose out. And HB 2551, that's an interesting case you bring up. What something people don't realize is that in America, your outdoors is the third largest sector of personal spending in America. And if you want to, just behind financial and insurance services, and being number 1 and number 2 being outpatient health care, is outdoors expenditures. And on a more local scale, the state of Arizona, 49,000 jobs. Think about that, 49,000 jobs. 4.1 billion with a B in expenditures. That's incredible. 342 million in state tax revenue. What is there not to defend? These are people's livelihoods. So the county has stepped forth 3 weeks ago to help those legislators who pushed forward, Mr. Gowan and Mr. Crandall. Of course, there was hordes of people because it had a super vote from all, both sides, both parties, both houses, would be the whole term, and saying, look, Governor, you need to sign this to start running defense on this next massive operation.
And that
really one of the largest attacks in history via an administrative rule from 2005.
Okay, and HB 2551 currently is on the governor's desk?
Yeah.
All right.
So that we are coming under some immense attacks in the western U.S. Some large reasonings for that is many goals to aid along a North American Union, and bioregional governance is the technical term that actually started in 1946. Bioregional governance, absolution of your nation-state boundaries and sovereignty. And those attacks come in many forms. And you say, well, what's the big deal about road networks? Well, imagine taking away 75% of those billions and millions of dollars in jobs, tens of thousands of jobs I just listed. Take away 3/4 of those. That's your impact on something as simple as a road. So these attacks come under many guises throughout the United States. One, like I say, just promulgated as a rule. It's called Travel Management Rule. It's not called Travel Management Act of Congress assembled. Think about it. So Gary Ingersoll, the author, when he was out here trying to sell people on it in 2006, and I took him outside the building and said, so where do you want us to whip this? Because we're going to. Do you want it in the courts or the legislature? Well, I prefer the legislature. And I said, so what do you think about what you're hearing and seeing this out here in the great state of Arizona? Oh, I've never been here. It's great. So someone, again, in the Beltway is going to dictate your backyard that's never been here, keywords. So that author promulgated by your chief forester, he's not mine, who also, by the way, the next one that expanded it was Chief Forester Gail Kimball, who also was the chief forester for the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization for North America, who she took an oath to. So she took an oath to a foreign body.
Exactly.
So anyway, and that's just a fact.
Doyle, I have a question on this. One of the things about the Forestry Service, and I don't think a lot of people know, and that is that each national forest that we have in Arizona is like a separate fiefdom, a kingdom.
Kingdom, if you will.
Yeah, where there's different rules, different regulations, different everything, and yet they have no capacity for enforcement on any of these.
Well, and actually their jurisdictional stance is null and void, because actually Congress already said that all federal land management agencies, which is what they are, they're not owners, have to follow state environmental regulations. Also, all the forests for the GSA, now they do have a job outside of organizing parties, believe it or not. Now the GSA are inventory keepers of everything in this country, categorically state in their own documents that we never waived any jurisdiction to the large federal land chunks throughout the West. And in fact, they're held, and you picked on, in this case, not picked on, but you asked about the Forest Service, the millions of acres they manage are held in proprietorial interest only. The lowest form of jurisdiction. Level 1 is exclusive. That would be like a military base ceded by the state legislature to the federal government and signed by the governor, and then accepted by an act of Congress.
Okay, Doyle, when we get back from break, thanking some of our sponsors for making this possible, can we get into some of the chargebacks to the Forest Service that Apache County is engaged in? All righty, having said that, we will be back after a short break. All right, we're back visiting with Doyle Shamley. Doyle, having to do with the federal jurisdiction on our forest, you've got a YouTube out, Defend Rural America, and a website that you're on, defendruralamerica.com, Will you kind of give us a thumbnail explanation of how Apache County has regained control of the forest by challenging, actually, the federal jurisdiction?
Well, am I there?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, welcome back.
I was getting hammered with feedback, so I didn't know. Okay. Hey, anyway, the Defend Rural America was an institute that last October sponsored myself and many of my sheriff friends around the West Coast, I'll say, because I was hitting Reno, we were in Oregon, etc. I don't know which video you're referring to, but I know what I did. The engagements were to try to make your local populations, that's why we had 28 stops in less than 1 month, for instance, become aware of their constitutional rights. And under the Republic, and we've stated this, over and over, is that 10th Amendment. If the government didn't have it explicitly, the power allocated it, then they don't have it at all. And the lands were to be disposed of. It's the precept since the Northwest land. It goes back to the Articles of Confederation. These so-called public lands were to be disposed of in a prompt manner by the federal government once the state left statehood. And in the western U.S., that promise was not kept. East of Colorado it was, west of Colorado it wasn't. Now, being that the states did not waive or cede any legislative jurisdiction over federally managed lands, if counties and states are going to uphold their oath and want to see their citizenry thrive and have lower crime and more jobs and a better standard of living and better education, the counties and states need to step in and fulfill their oaths and their duties to uphold that legislative jurisdiction. At the same time, we all need to be working for that promise, that tenet, going to the Supreme Court, going to Congress for disposal of the public lands to the state. Why is it okay for every state east of Colorado and not west? Tell me that. Excluding Hawaii, because that one, again, Hawaii versus the Department of Hawaiian Affairs. I mean, how much more does people want for information? That's 2010 Supreme Court, where they ruled you're right, we should have disposed of the lands. So I'm not talking ancient law or outdated, as Gore and people like to refer to as our founding fathers and our Constitution. If they want to play that game, fine. Here's a Supreme Court case from just 3 years back.
Okay, well, let's fast forward to what you've done with the Forest Service. You're engaged in timber cutting and resource, and you've got some kind of a chargeback system to the Forest Service or the Department of Agriculture.
I don't know if I'd say chargeback. I don't know where that came from, but
that came out of my mind.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
I just if I could have a reference. Anyway, working with those partners that want to work with us, and just going around those that don't want to work with us, or pushing them out of the way.
Nice.
We have been able to help secure a lot of jobs in the economy and make it a good place to work and a safe place to protect our watersheds that people need to drink from or go recreate in, go spend money on, whatever they want to do. It's theirs. It's not the federal government. Go get milling operations that can process a marketable good and turn it into a real productive profit measure, not a service economy that our national government wants us to turn into, a productive economy. And in some of the arrangements, because the county is not getting into anybody's way, private free enterprise is the key to our republic. And the one of the few things that made us so different and special in the history of this world. And private free enterprise simply needs to be defended by their local government when they come under attack, and that's what we're doing. The few cases where the county has taken up a role because of the critical situation, maybe it's a critical threat to a watershed for irrigation and drinking water, or a critical threat to people's properties. In those cases, the county and Forest Service simply worked out what was the equitable level per acre for a timber cut. What's the cost per acre? And now, if you can't do it or don't want to or don't need to or whatever the case is, we're going to do it, but our citizens should not pay twice, and you've already been budgeted.
Okay, now we're getting down to the meat of the matter.
Yeah, so let's work it out, and you can transfer those funds, be in an agreement, to the county. If you can't get to it or won't get to it, whatever the case may be, too busy, whatever, short manpower, it just depends on who you talk to.
Well, they're going to holler budget restraints.
Yeah, and those partners who have been great partners in various agencies, whether it was a game agency or a forestry industry or a land type, more land or mineral-centric management agency, have been great partners and see the great potential of this. They see the 11,000-acre, $22 million project being saved by the county, and in writing have thanked us.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that Navajo County backed off from anything to do with the Rodeo Chetaskai fire because of, for lack of a better term, the chutzpah to follow through on this?
Well, did you see any of what we're doing take place over there after the Rodeo Chetaskai fire?
Not a bit. And I was told, and I've read in numerous places, that it was because of litigation by the Sierra Club that the erosion of the national forest was a concern, and that's why they stopped dead everything in their tracks, because you had a life expectancy of those burned timbers of less than 2 years. They had to be culled, or it was worthless at that point.
It's immediate.
Correct. Had no commercial timber value or structural value, but remember, the counties have a delegation of authority and have taken an oath. So why are there not countersuits? Because those litigants directly threatened the health, safety, and welfare of the citizenry.
So they just lacked the intestinal fortitude to follow through then.
Probably that and the knowledge.
I think the knowledge is the key.
I don't give the knowledge one much credence because, you know what, I haven't seen a public library charge somebody to walk in there lately.
Doyle, let's fast forward. Let's start from Springerville and go south down to Payson. What other municipalities have engaged to back your ordinances and your actions? What specifically has Sholo, Payson engaged?
Heber, Overguard, all of those little communities.
Yeah, all those guys.
At the citizenry level, overwhelming attendance. I've been called in to present these things in Navajo County to like the White Mountain Conservatives, groups all over Payson, Heber, Overguard. Now what's ironic and the funniest ones is like last February, all the candidates that sit in the front row.
Mm-hmm.
For different offices at all levels and tell everybody how they're going to stand up. And then when I bring out their voting record or their past municipal record, if you want to call it that, if they've served somewhere else, it's kind of funny how quick they sit down. And it's kind of funny how many of them are suddenly experts when they're sitting in front of the front row of hundreds of people on your topics. And then I say, well, then why in today's hearings at the Capitol that I just left, why was there, here's the list of commenters that tried to help our state legislators of both parties, mind you. Unilateral committee to defend and protect our jobs and our outdoors and our safety and our industry. Bipartisan, the fancy word people like to hear. Why don't I see any of commentary here listed by any of you sitting in this front row? So, see, again, we're right back to that apathy issue. But as far as official entities standing up, you've had, I have to say, I'm proud of the town of Eager. And your unincorporated areas won't have, let's say, a city council, but they'll have a local governing something that is the focal point, if you will. So like a rural fire department, fire district may be the
fire districts, domestic water improvement districts, all those things.
Water conservation districts. Tons of those have stood up and said, yes, this is right. We need to protect these resources and our people.
Well, let me restate the question specifically. Where is Sholo, Heber, and let's say Payson?
Payson's done nothing. Even though was asked at their request to present down there, and I have multiple times. I've been on radio networks there at their request. County staff has had me down there to present, but I've seen nothing.
Interesting.
But much of this population on the ground, though, is very supportive. But there again, though, that's because they're facing the impacts.
Well, I think that's where, the last month, that's where I've been spending a lot of my time trying to get the citizenry to engage with the town council, the mayor's office, and every other thing. But anyway, let's hold that thought till we get back. I'm Don McDowell with
Joe Nocton,
John Colazar,
and Doyle Shamley, Apache County. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back.
I didn't have to turn my head whenever I know I don't want her.
That's all for you, JK. All right,
thanks, loads.
Yeah, buddy. We're going to switch gears and get back to fishing with our master rod builder, James Guggenauer from downtown Payson, Arizona. James, say hey to Doyle Shamley up in Springerville.
Hey, Doyle, how you doing? How are you doing too, Don?
Hey, I'm doing great, and I hope you make it up here sometimes. I heard your field of endeavor. I hope you get to come up here and fish, and you do live in a pretty area of the state as well.
We love it here in Payson, Ken.
I'll tell you what, it's always good to go to Payson. All right, James, if you've been following along, we're talking about some of the things Apache County's engaged in, and I want to divert a little bit from that. Feel free to comment if you wish, but I need to know what's happening over on the Mother Lake.
Hey, some good news fishing on Roosevelt. The water level dropped another percent this past week, so we're standing at 51% full, but it's kind of normal this time of year. We get more water use in the valley, so they take that out of Roosevelt.
James, what is the water clarity done with the algal blow up or bloom?
Still called stained this past week, Don. That's another normal thing for this time of year that we start to see the algae. But you can probably see about 3 to 4 feet down in the water, and definitely has a green tint to it.
Okay.
Tonneau Creek and the Salt River are still flowing pretty well for this time of year. Tonneau Creek is about 30%, and the Salt River is at 60%. And once again, this for June, that's pretty normal rates that we get there. Bass fishing was called good this past week by local anglers. That topwater bite we've been talking about is still going on, a little more sporadic. And so we're just advising anglers have a topwater bite tied onto a rod, have it laying right on your deck, because you never know when you're going to have to pick that thing up and make a cast near a boil.
Are you being able to chase blow-ups with the shad periodically during the day, as they sometimes do?
I asked that question, and what it seems like is happening is they're pretty short durations. So if you see one out in the middle, by the time you troll over there, it's usually gone. But if one happens near you, that's why we're saying to keep that rod right on the deck.
Well, a lot of times throwing a crankbait, instead of trying to get them to pop a topwater bait, get a 8 to 12 foot running crankbait and shad pattern and drag it down through that boil.
Yep, absolutely. Crankbaits will work there, but the new Rio Rico lures, I mean, I don't want to sound like an advertisement for them, but those guys are just almost 100% guys are saying that the Ricos are just slamming them for those boils. Not that a crankbait wouldn't work, or I've even heard guys dropping drop shots right in the middle of them. Most anything, when they're in that mode to feed, they'll usually grab anything that comes by.
Well, most certainly the topwater Rico would be my first choice, but a lot of times, they'll come up and roll on it or do nothing at all, and then maybe the second or third cast go down after them with a crankbait.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like you haven't been there before, right, Don?
Nope.
Hey, and then the other thing that's been reported pretty well, and is Texas rig worms, a 6-inch worm, or Carolina rig lizards.
Nice.
You know, as the fish start to move deeper after the spawn, Carolina rigs become more popular. I know guys, they like to cast those onto a hump or up onto the shoreline and drag them down the hill, and pretty good success reported using the Carolina rigs.
Is there any particular color you'd like to talk about?
Green.
Green.
And I don't know if that, green has always been a good color on Roosevelt Lake just traditionally, but it seems like with that algae in the water, green, everybody's switching to that this time of year.
Yep, dark is better. Any discussion on watermelon with red flick?
I hadn't heard the red flakes, basically just green.
Okay.
Lobo worm makes a green with a black flake, and I know that's a pretty popular one, but I sure wouldn't doubt that a red flake would work just as well.
Yeah, nice. What about the crappie boys?
Nighttime crappie fishing. Last week we had a new moon, and guys, as soon as the moon starts to go down, they get their crappie lights out. And last week was reported very successful for crappie. Guys use exclusively live minnows at night. And a couple of hot spots that were reported was around Windy Hill on the Salt River side.
Okay. Yeah.
And back in Sally Mae Cove. When you go into Sally Mae on the left-hand side, you'll see those cliffs over there and some good crappie bite over there.
Fun stuff. How about anything on the rim country trout lakes?
Yeah. I just can't say enough. This is for a month now. We've been calling it excellent fishing up there. In fact, Dennis Perch and I had a chance to go up to Sunrise Lake last week, and we had a great time fishing up there until the wind blew us off the lake.
I've got a bone to pick with Dennis's wife on that. I was trying to get a hold of both of you guys that day, and she goes, "No, he's working over in the White Mountains."
Working.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
But we had a great trip. For trout, guys are reporting power baits and salmon eggs from the shorelines, spinner baits like a Roadrunner or a Panther Martin on a ultralight rod. And what Dennis and I were using was a small crawfish-colored crankbait. And we caught most of the fish on that little bait, just drifting along with the wind and letting it work.
Was that a Rebel?
Yes, it was.
Imagine that.
How about Z-Rays? Any work on those?
Z-Rays are always popular. I didn't hear that report this week, JK, but I know a lot of guys use those, and just whatever seems to be working for the day.
Okay.
We teamed out a lot of baits, but we didn't try a Z-Ray ourselves.
Yeah. Sounds like it's just a good time just to get up and just go fishing. Just get off the couch and do it.
We left here about 4:30 in the morning, and driving up, you're going up past the Woods Canyon and seeing the elk on the side of the road, and as you get up on the rim, you start seeing deer, and then as you get up on the flats, you start seeing antelope herds, and just a great morning to be out there. It's nice and cool. We wore a jacket in the morning for a couple hours, and fun time.
Nice.
Let me get in for our fly fishermen that like to go up there. This is the time of year that the woolly buggers start working, and in greens, browns, and blacks. But the reports are they have to have some type of tinsel on them. A little bit of flash on that woolly bugger seems to be working better than most.
I always like woolly buggers with flash.
Right. We were talking to a fellow in a little fluke tube up there. And he was telling us at the ramp that that's what he was using, and the lake is kind of small, and we were fishing near him. And sure enough, we watched him catch fish most of the morning on those flies. So it was a good time to be there. And like I said, watching the antelope herds come in and get a drink right there at the ramp at Sunrise Lake was pretty exciting.
That's good stuff.
But I wanted to get in that in Friday's Pace and Roundup, there is a very good article written on the gizzard shad issue at Roosevelt Lake. And I was just going to let all your listeners know that they can go online to the Payson Roundup in newspaper and read that article. It's very well written and very accurate.
Okay, good job. Who wrote that article?
Pete Alshar. He's the editor of the Payson Roundup.
All right, good. Well, glad to see them engaging on the issue.
That issue.
While we have you, do you have any questions for Doyle relative to anything that's going on up on the rim or in Apache County?
Yeah, I've been listening to the show through your website here, Don. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Yeah, you know, as Don, you know, we've been talking with Cameron and trying to get Mayor Evans and see what could be done about the expanding range of the Mexican gray wolf, and you know, people are concerned about that. We absolutely know that's an impact to hunters via the elk herds and the deer herds. So it's going to be significant, and taking a wait and see attitude doesn't seem like the right approach.
Well, James, we've taken a wait and see attitude. We took a wait and see attitude on the gizzard shad. We've taken it since 1995 a wait and see attitude on the wolves, and quite frankly, my personal lobbying with Mayor Kinney and Cameron, trying to get them to engage and support Apache County and maybe force Gila County to get off the stump and re-engage. But anyway, I'll see you guys up there next week. Thanks for a great report. And by the way, James, happy Father's Day.
Same to you, and to all the listeners, same thing. Talk to
all
you
right,
later.
guys, we'll be back with more with Joey, John, and Doyle Shamley from Springerville. I'm Don McDowell, and we'll be back.
I felt the rush of the Rio Grande.
All righty, Doyle. Hey, thanks for hanging with us on the Rim Country Fishing Report. A lot of good stuff going on up there outside. Joey has a question for you. Go ahead and fire that off to Doyle.
Doyle, have you heard from the Arizona Citizens Defense League on any of these matters?
Yes, actually, outside of almost every gun show, they're selling, I don't know what you want to say, but promoting the organization, signing up members, et cetera, which is good. Outside of all gun shows all over the state, if you will. I spoke to him at every gun show when he's assaulting you on the way into the place, and we have yet to get him to a meeting.
Wow.
Interesting.
Really?
Fact, he had a table right across from ours for 2 whole days at our Springerville gun show.
Well, we've covered a lot of stuff today, Doyle. We've got about 8 minutes to recap, and I'm going to leave that to you. You guys are very proactive. I'll take a public stance and support all of the action that I've seen coming out of Apache County, and certainly will do what we can here to urge the other counties and townships between here and there to engage and follow suit and support Apache County. So,
well, and I do think that I understand fleshing out who hasn't helped, but that's obvious by public record. And oftentimes in life, whether it be Happy Father's Day or whatever, we forget to concentrate on what's important, the proactive and those who have helped. So let me get some of those out here. Congressman Rob Bishop in Utah, rock solid. Senator Orrin Hatch helped us intensely throughout the southwestern gray wolf fiasco. Of course, Ryan Benson, Big Game Forever. The Utah Association of Counties, the various soil and water conservation districts along the west and south of New Mexico. In Arizona, the Arizona Cattle Growers, the Ranching Heritage Alliance, the Gila Cattle Growers in New Mexico, Congressman Paul Gosar. Now, Kirkpatrick, who is ours, we got to brief her personally with only 8 of us for a couple hours, and then have had to tell her chief of staff multiple times that they still haven't gotten back with us, face-to-face. I don't mean in a letter. Right there, face-to-face, most recently at the Western Counties convention in Flagstaff, hundreds of counties from around the West. So she has been lackadaisical, but I expected that because she did so in the first term as well. Now, I know her office is listening for a fact today to your broadcast, and they're going to call and start whining today. Sorry, the chips fall where they fall.
Yeah, thanks.
Doyle, you mentioned that that you have the congressman in effect, but Ryan Benson, who was very active in most of the wolf legislation that was going on, and particularly in the release by the feds to the states of authority over that, he's going to be down here June the 25th talking to the conservation groups, the sportsmen's groups here. Is there any possibility for you guys being down here at the same time?
Well, I'm headed down there, but I haven't seen a venue to speak, so, I'd rather not be just sitting in the back row of the audience. And he's also supposed to be at our upcoming event on the 28th.
That makes sense then.
Give us a rundown. You've got a special seminar and symposium Friday, June 28th, 6 to 9, let's say, at Springerville American Legion Hall. Who else is going to show up for that one?
We have RSVPs from key people all over the place. Our good people like Representative Brenda Barton, Senator Al Melvin, the governor's staff, the director of Game and Fish, the director of Ag. Congressman Pierce is supposed to be here. There's a high probability of Governor Martinez being here, as well as Governor Herbert of Utah. At this point, we have federal congressmen coming and or staff, and sometimes it is truly a calendar conflict, and they're not just saying it. I verified they actually had something else that day.
Well, we all have those conflicts, but it's my understanding.
For the most part, good people. State Senator Gail Griffin, great people coming. And the key speakers are the world's renowned experts on predatory genetics, biology. One of them, I can't tell you half his background, but let's just say he's earned the highest medals a person can get in the NSA. And he worked for the State Department on how predators around the world have been used by governments to control people.
Well, this ought to be a good one. They're going to be in direct conflict with what the feds call, or Fish and Wildlife uses their scientists, who are basically Ted Turner puppets, to contradict there's going to be a direct conflict in their opinions. You can know that one coming in.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but the thing is that all these gentlemen are esteemed congressional fellows and are continually used because of their scientific integrity by the agency themselves. So these are agency scientists. They just get back room. We're bringing them out to the forefront.
Who specifically will be speaking?
Matt Cronin, the premier carnivore geneticist. Will Graves, author and worldwide expert on security and predator issues around the world. And we just can't say a lot of his, even in print, his resume. And then, of course, Jim Beers, renowned Fish and Wildlife Service former biologist, and he was the one who blew the whistle on the fraud in Congress in official hearings on the fraud and fiscal mismanagement within the agency. And we're going to show the real science and real impacts of Fish and Wildlife Service and Land Management Agency programs throughout the country. So this is a rare, unique opportunity because you have three leading world's experts who have contributed to each other's white papers, and I have the I don't know what you call it, the benefit or whatever, of getting to talk to so many fine people around the world every week like this. But ironically, in their careers, they've never been under the same roof together.
Where's this going to be held at, Doyle?
That Springerville American Legion that Don announced, the Springerville, Arizona American Legion Hall. Being a veteran, I'm proud to support them, as are our local ranchers who are helping sponsor this event. Ranching Heritage Alliance and Wink Krigler, ex-Diamond Ranch, are co-sponsors with Veritas Research. And we have an eminent flock of PhDs, or FUDs as they call themselves, in riparian habitat, social economics, microeconomics, rangeland management, all attending as well, just in the audience, because and soil and water conservation districts like crazy, and industry, but not just politicians, because our mantra is solution-oriented, proactive. So we need to restore our constitutional republic. And the only way to do that is with a knowledgeable working base of people. So, like you folks, that's why I look forward to you guys being there. I look forward to down there at Bass Pro, just like in many of our past operations.
Well, Doyle, I want to thank you very much. I know we've had a lot of information shared by you in Apache County. Our sincere thanks for engaging with us. We look forward to seeing you at Bass Pro Shops on the 25th. We will see you at the American Legion Hall in
downtown Springerville.
Yep, downtown Springerville on the 28th, and look forward to shaking your hand. And again, thank you very much for engaging, and enjoy your Father's Day.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you all down there and talking to Mr. Benson again. Like I say, he was immense help during the Southwestern Gray Wolf debacle that we got the agencies to withdraw their plan, knowing they were going to sneak it in via 10J modification. Anyway, and we need to keep networking. That's the key thing. But only network with proactive, solution-oriented folks. Don't waste your breath on neutralizers.
You got it. I appreciate that. We'll talk to you next week, Doyle. Thank you for Joey, thanks for coming down. Enjoy your Father's Day, and if you guys need guns, bullets, arrows, sticks, or stones,
but we got them.
Joey Nacho, Lookout Mountain Outdoors, and you're located next door to Bridget's on Cave Creek. What's the address?
17232 North Cave Creek Road,
just south of the candy store. JK,
I don't know you. I don't want to see your emails this week.
I want to thank Safeguard Business Systems for the bagels today.
Bagel Day.
Fine job. And happy Father's Day, JK.
To you too, sir.
All right, that's it for us. Enjoy your day. There will be some grilling involved, as they say in Alabama. So take your kids fishing, hug your bath boat. Slew Soldier. We're out of here.